The youth vote that was fast asleep when two old men were running for president seems to be waking up. Many Gen Zers who were planning to sit this year's election out are all of a sudden throwing their support towards Kamala Harris and showing it on social media. Tweets of 20-something-year-olds rallying behind Kamala are being shared on X like wildfire. My name is Olivia Juliana. I'm 21 years old and I'm supporting Kamala Harris in 2024. Who's with me? My name is Harry Sisson. I'm 21 years old and I'm fully supporting Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024. Who's with me? And so on and so forth. People in this voting age group are also the ones behind the memes that are currently taking over the internet involving brat, coconut trees, and a wide array of TikTok sounds.
I'm looking for a man in finance, trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes, finance, trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes, finance, trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes, finance, trust fund.
360, when you're in the mirror, do you know what you see?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
I'm so Julia.
You exist in the context.
666 with a princess tree. I'm everywhere, I'm so Julia.
Of all in which you live and what came before you.
While brat edits and coconut tree memes are allegedly making Kamala Harris relatable to some people, already securing the endorsements of celebrities like Ariana Grande and Charlie XCX, how relatable. The first person to call Kamala brat, she also seems to be aligned with Gen Z on some of the issues that matter to progressives, including being an advocate for abortion rights, gun control, and fighting climate change. Gen Z for Change, the nonprofit advocacy group that uses social media to promote civil action among members of Gen Z, endorsed Vice President Harris on Sunday, writing in a statement, Gen Z for Change will be dedicated to mobilizing young voters in support of Vice President Kamala Harris. Deputy Executive Director of Gen Z for Change, Victoria Hammett, joins us now to discuss.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Thanks for coming up.
Thank you for joining us. So, what do you make of the candidacy of Kamala Harris? Is it true that young people are going to be more interested in her than they were in Joe Biden? And does that have to do with just the fact that she is, she comes across as centuries younger, is more dynamic and capable of speaking? Is there really policy differences that appeal more to the youth vote?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I feel like it was evident that young voters did not want Joe Biden to be the nominee. I think that this was evident not only through the uncommitted primary vote movement, but also in polling that we saw before Biden withdrew. So in response to Biden withdrawing from the race, I think we're seeing immediate excitement from young voters. It seems like there's a lot more hope right now than there was even just a week ago. But at the same time, young voters really care about policy. And so we are all eagerly anticipating Kamala Harris's agenda, what policy she's going to be running on.
A lot of people have their eyes on Gaza and what Kamala says. She was one of the early people in the administration that was critical of Israel's treatment of people in Gaza, and then was asked to kind of reel that in. A lot of the staffers that left the administration over Gaza said that a Harris administration would be better. A lot of people are looking to the Netanyahu visit and seeing what she says coming out of this as an indicator. She's already refused to preside over Congress. But I think the first test of Gen Z's influence and manifesting Kamala as being more progressive will likely be the VP pick. How do you see this influencing the momentum that she has? Could it stop it if maybe she picks someone like Shapiro?
That is a fear of mine personally, is that we could lose this momentum right now if she were to choose Shapiro as her vice president pick. My personal preference would be someone like Andy Beshear, because unfortunately Shapiro has been incredibly vocal, not only being against people who are supporting Gaza, but against student protesters specifically. And these student protesters are a huge portion of the youth voting bloc. So I think if she were to pick Shapiro as her vice president, we would certainly lose momentum from the youth vote there.
So a Quinnipiac poll from July 19th, the period July 19th to July 21st, had Kamala Harris actually getting slightly less of the youth vote than Biden versus Trump. Now, that poll is a little bit of an outlier. There are others showing her, and that poll had her actually losing the youth vote to Trump. Other polls have her somewhere between 16 percentage points and 3 percentage points above Trump, which is still well short of how Biden performed with, we're talking about, voters under 35 in the general election in 2020. So I'm wondering if Kamala Harris actually is energizing the youth. Donald Trump has been doing surprisingly well in polls with groups that are historically in support of Democrats, not just young people, but also minorities, black people, Latino voters, et cetera. Major inroads are being made by the Republicans. Is Kamala Harris, right now we're in a moment where there could be any candidate, if they're all getting behind Harris, it's going to be Harris, but you could have had a Democratic convention, an open convention, where someone who maybe is even more appealing to the youth emerges, and yet the process, what's happening is a total consolidation behind her candidacy. Is that the best idea?
I completely understand why some people wanted an open convention. Unfortunately, I think that type of chaos this late in the election cycle could have also put off a lot of voters. In regards to polling data, specifically surrounding the youth vote in regards to Harris, I think it's important to remember that her candidacy is still very young. She's been the official presumptive nominee for a very short period of time now. So a lot can change. I will say one thing that conservatives are doing that I think Democrats should take note of is using social media to their advantage. Donald Trump went on Logan Paul's podcast, and given that Democrats are also struggling with the young male vote specifically, I think that Republicans engaging with social media in a way that they haven't previously is something that Democrats should pay attention to and learn from and use social media in a similar way.
Can you talk a little bit about what Gen Z for Change is doing? And for context, in 2020, Gen Z for Change, by different name, was a major actor in the election. We saw the youth vote increase by 11 points from 2016 compared to 2020, with 50% of 18 to 29-year-olds turning out. It was huge. How much of this do you think has to do with social media and the organizing on it? And what does Gen Z for Change have planned this time around?
Social media is a fantastic tool to reach young voters, to reach any voters, but young voters specifically. I remember the days of TikTok for Biden. There was definitely a lot of excitement around the 2020 election, excitement that we were previously seeing as of a week ago, we were not seeing with this election. And so I think the increase in conversation surrounding this election on social media is definitely something to take note of, given that it is such a powerful tool to reach young voters. And I hope that the campaign uses social media to their benefit. I think a lot of notable Democrats use social media very well. AOC is someone who comes to mind, someone who uses social media to speak directly to voters, and I hope that the campaign takes note of that.
What do you have names for what kind of VP, if not Josh Shapiro, would be appealing to the youth vote?
Yeah, my personal preference would be someone like Andy Beshear. I think that him coming from Kentucky, him being able to speak to a part of the country that doesn't typically align with Democrats is really powerful. I also think that his track record as governor, always being a strong ally to the LGBTQ plus community, always standing firm in his pro-choice beliefs, is pretty significant and can definitely be an asset to Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I think on a debate stage with J.D. Vance, I would love to see Beshear point out this movement we've seen on social media as well. He's not from here, in reference to being from Kentucky. He's not like us. They're saying he washes his cast iron pan. He doesn't understand what everyday life is like in Appalachia. I think people want to see that as well, but we've also seen Gen Z care a lot more about policy than previous younger generations, almost by, force, because we're inheriting this economy where it seems like we're worse off than our parents. And we've had people, Kamala herself, say that she wants, young girls to have more rights than their mothers, not less. And we're seeing the unfortunate opposite of that becoming a reality in a lot of states. Can you speak to some of the policy issues that you want to see the Harris campaign focus on to really win the youth vote?
Totally. Well, as you know, we've already talked about, Gaza is going to be incredibly important for the youth vote. We need an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, first and foremost. Obviously, abortion is an issue that matters a lot to young people. Same with LGBTQ plus rights. But one thing that I don't think we put enough emphasis on is how much Gen Z really does care about fiscal policy as well. This generation is incredibly supportive of labor unions. I think it's a really good sign that many major labor unions have already endorsed Kamala Harris. And so that's something that the campaign should definitely be focusing on as well.
Thank you so much for coming on, Victoria. We really appreciate it. Happy Brat Summer.
Awesome. Happy Brat Summer. Thank you.